Once again, welcome to the State of the Snail session during this Slow Food Leader Summit. I can't believe it is 2022 already. The last time we hosted this Leader Summit was September 2020. And of course, so much has changed since 2020. So I'm really grateful that you're all here in person and during your busy lives. And I'm looking forward to spending some time together talking about where we've been as a network. I actually want to go back to the beginning of the founding of Slow Food USA. And then come up to the present, talk about who we are now, what we're doing now, and then the last part of this call will be looking towards the future and aligning our vision. And actually, I wanted to start with a quote from Stephen Satterfield from last night. I thought that perfectly queued up this conversation today. Stephen said, "A shared vision is super powerful. It shouldn't be underestimated. The needs of each community are really different. Ask yourselves, what am I doing here? Do some internal alignment, making sure that it's all pure and good and checks out. Then look at what is ailing in your community. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Your work becomes a response to that. If progress depends on one person, that is no network. You need a shared vision that's not reliant on good intentions." I love that. And I love how, sharing a vision, connecting, sharing is all the foundational work to actually doing work together and making an effective impact in our community. So I want to jump right into this Jamboard, and Brian will drop a link in the chat to our Jamboard. How many of you have used Jamboard before? Can you just raise your hand or give a thumbs up on the Zoom? Not many. Okay, excellent. So the way it works, here's my Jamboard. I'm going to start to see people joining. Go ahead and jump into that link. Thank you, Brian. slowfoodusa.org/state. And the way it works is quite simple. You just jump over here to this little sticky note icon. Can you all try that right now? Just go ahead and click the link in the chat. We're going to be using this throughout. So let's just try. We're going to do the first one is like a trial just to get you comfortable with it. So go ahead and click that thing and you can type anything in the sticky note. And what I want you to type is, why are you here? What brings you to Slow Food? What brings you here tonight? If you want to include your name and your affiliation, that's great. You don't have to. But once you click the type in your note, yep. Then just hit save and yes. Right. And then we can drag and drop so that we can see everyone's answers here. Excellent. If you're really confused on how this works, just jump in the chat, the Zoom chat, and let us know, or unmute yourself and ask a technical question if you want. It's important that we all are able to use this tool tonight because we'll be using this throughout the session. Yes, great. Brian is here for all the tech assistance. Brian is our Director of Communications. I think many of you have met him already. He's in Chicago. Thanks, Brian, for helping tonight.
So I'm supposed to click on this little thing. This is Paula.
Yeah, Paula, hi.
I can't do it, or I haven't done it.
Do you see my screen where I'm sharing?
Yes.
So there's this little icon over here, like in the middle, it says sticky note.
Just double click on it?
Just click that one click and type in whatever you want and hit save. And you can change the color if you're feeling...
Excuse me, when I'm typing, nothing's happening. Oh, it says hi, but I didn't say hi.
Okay. So make sure you're clicking in the link. You might be looking at my screen share. Make sure you open slowfoodusa.org/state. Brian, if you could put that link in the chat one more time, that's great.
I'm also seeing some folks in the chat mentioning that it says there are too many people using, so maybe if you drop your answer to the question and then leave the Jamboard for a minute, just so we can cycle through folks' participation.
It's not working for me, Jose.
So Paula, if it's okay, if you want to just put your answer in the chat, we can also get it on. Same, Beth, if you're on your phone, just put your answer in the chat
Okay.
and we'll get your answers up there. Awesome.
Anna, this is Stephanie from Slow Food Vegas.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, on the
Hey.
Jamboard, in order to edit the sticky note, for me, I'm on an iPad. When I click on a sticky note, there are 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, and I click those dots and select edit.
Yeah, brilliant. Stephanie, while you're unmuted, would you mind reading some of these out loud?
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Amazing.
So, why are we here? The vibe, I like that one. The people, inspired by the people I meet, shared learning, to listen and learn and connect. I love the people I work with and have met through the movement, celebrating craft, and love needs to be recognized. Oh, that's nice. Want to reconnect with everybody, touch base with the mothership. That's a good one.
The mothership.
I love food, farmers, and producers, especially locally.
Mm-hmm.
Joy and justice. Oops.
Amazing. I see here, to connect and learn about the constantly growing and evolving role of slow food in this local, national, and global movement.
Nice.
Yeah, Molly says connections in the chat. Beth says curious foodie. Shirley is here for the snail. Here we go. I love that. Wonderful. Okay, so how are we feeling about Jamboard? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Are you good to go with this? Okay. It's really great to see a response from all of you and to see these beautiful reasons for why we are here. Growing a healthier planet, the people here to connect and meet old friends, meet new ones. I love seeing all the curiosity and relationship-oriented answers here. Connect, see what other chapters are doing, contributing to the health and wellness of our communities through food. Amazing. Okay, thank you, Angie. She's driving, so just listening. Thank you for joining us, even though you're on the road. Hannah says to gain knowledge and improve our chapter. Wonderful. Okay, so now that we have some experience with Jamboard, what I want to move to next is looking at doing this little past, present, future exercise that we just did as a staff. It was really helpful to be able to understand where we've come as a movement in order to understand where we are now and then to look into the future and see where we're going. So what I want to do next, and you'll see this if you go to the next slide on the Jamboard, is we're going to do some history review. Now I have my version of the Slow Food USA history from a lot of people that I've talked to. I've actually been on a roll talking to many of the old time folks who have been around for a long time, and it's been really nice to connect with Josh Fertel and Kurt Ellis and Catherine Dormling, a lot of folks from the early days. It's been really wonderful to get to know them and hear from them. But I still know that my perspective is just one perspective and that many of you have been around slow food for quite some time. So what I'd love to do is, as I go through the history, if you could also fill in the Jamboard with your perspective of how you perceived slow food during this historical periods. So I have 4 kind of periods marked. I have, and you'll see this in the Jamboard, the early days, maybe up like the founding up through 2008. I have the kind of the Josh Fertel era, 2008 to 2012. These are very rough. I don't know if these are the best ways to demarcate time, but that's what I got. And then 2012 to 2019, this is part of Richard's leadership as part of the organization. And then we have like COVID. We have, right? Like the recent history. I hear someone, could you just make sure everyone's muted? I hear a little bit of background noise that's a bit distracting. Okay, so here we go. Let's go. So if you're in Jamboard yourself, let's go to the early days slide, 1986 to 2008. So Slow Food was founded, right? It was by Carlo Vitrini and friends in Rome in 1986. And his focus and the focus for others, I mean, I love the origin story of you know, a McDonald's was trying to start at the base of the Spanish Steps in Rome. Oops. Brian, maybe you can, it's okay, we don't need the background. And you know, instead of throwing rocks in protest, what they did was put out a long table and serve pasta to the community and said, we don't need fast food, we want slow food. And that was the origin story of how slow food started. You know, slow food, as it started in Italy, the focus was on the right to pleasure. In Italy, good food, good, delicious food is culturally normal. And I think as it came to the United States, in the United States, sometimes good food is perceived as elite. And so we have this kind of inherent conflict in the slow food of maybe a natural way of looking at like the right to pleasure as like baked into slow food. But in the United States, that cultural context turns into a bit of a cultural clash, because here, if we talk about pleasure, that suddenly feels elitist. And so I just wanted to highlight that little cultural difference that kind of started from the top. But if you want to jump into the early days, I don't know if many of you were present then, but go ahead and put in a sticky note for anything that you perceived from those first founding days. I know, let's see, who might have been here during that time? Max, Charity, John. Love to see any thoughts from your perspective. Paula, I know you've been with
Can
Slow
you
Food
just
for
one
quite a
more
long
time? Could you
Yeah.
one more time say how to put a sticky up?
Yeah, so you're on the link. Well, you can also just put it in the chat, but if you go to slowfoodusa.org/state, that is the link where you can access the Jamboard, or throw it in the chat, whatever's easiest. Thanks, Paula. Let me just move on, because I'm not sure how many, this is like going way back, right? You want a chapter, start one. And I think Portland was one of the first chapters. New York City was a really early chapter. Vermont was right up there in terms of the founding. I'm not sure if Vermont, Portland officially the first. Someone can correct me here, but yes, Patrick Martin's started the national office in 1999 is when Slow Food USA officially was incorporated. And his focus here, from what I've heard, was a real focus on conviviality and lifestyle and coming together and having meals together. In 2008, Slow Food Nation, the event was hosted in San Francisco. Were any of you there? I think probably some of you were at that event, right? Really huge event. Alice Waters was one of the key figures there. From what I've heard, during that event, a split between like fancy food and food justice was brought to light. Maybe not brought to light, but highlighted in how it was portrayed. Okay, someone's saying, I was there, so wonderful. Yeah, it felt really radical at the time, right? This, in our culture, this idea of slow food was revolutionary. It really was exciting. Yes, Patrick Martin started in 1999. I think slow food galvanized a lot of people. They like felt like some connection to, like, amazed to find this organization that tapped into what they were already feeling. Someone here is saying, I got introduced to slow food in 2008 and helped with the Time for Lunch campaign in 2009. Ticked off all the boxes for me. I didn't know an organization existed that would speak to me so well until I found slow food. Amazing. Donna first learned about slow food studying a bread baking at King Arthur. Cool, in 1990s. The ethos resonated with me. I was destined to be a part of this amazing movement. Slow Food Nation, so it says we kind of messed up on the food justice programs on the periphery, right, Charity? That's the split, right? The fancy food, it kind of like food justice got shunted off to the side and wasn't necessarily the main focus. But at the same time, if you were there, you felt like, oh, this is an amazing event. And actually, I think a lot of chapters and organizations came out of that event and the people who were there. Paula Shakin says, if you want a chapter, you start one. You want to save the gravid seeds, do it. Michael Dimmick, yes, he was a big leader then. Slow Food Nation was incredible. You started in 1999, Paula. That's amazing. A way to meet people in our new community who cared about growing. Awesome. Max Caruso says, I wasn't very active before 2008, but Jim Reichardt and some others from Northern California were able to participate in early Terra Madre, like gatherings in amazing places. Right, so Terra Madre, right, is a big festival in Italy, was also a huge catalyst for bringing people together and highlighting this amazing international network. Okay, so I see a lot of really fantastic positive energy here, maybe with a thread of like this tension, food justice, fancy food. How is that shaking out? Okay, awesome. So next, if you go to the next slide, the next era, we look at 2008 through 2012. This is when Josh Rattel was the director of Slow Food USA. And at that time, we were centered in New York City, Slow Food USA. So membership peaked in this era, around 20,000 members. There was a lot of network unity around the Time for Lunch campaign. We did some eat-ins. There was the $5 challenge. From what I've heard, chapters really felt connected by doing the same campaign and aligning around a same like call to action. But at the same time, there was or maybe a lot of internal conflicts in the national office, and the joy and justice split broadens even more and becomes really a hot topic issue. But again, I'd love to hear from you all, your perception as a chapter leader or from where you were standing in the network, what this era felt like, or how your chapter fit into this time. Did you participate in the Time for Lunch campaign or the $5 challenge? What worked with that time? What didn't work? Max Cruz, disco soup was a thing back in this period, right? So was that led by the youth network at that time? And Slow Food Prescott started at Prescott College, a small town chapter. Amazing. The $5 challenge, can someone give like a very short description of that? My impression was that the challenge was this only spend $5 on a meal, right? Paula's nodding your head. Okay, yes, this was before. I've seen some of the materials. Part of the kickback critique of that was from farmers saying, hey, listen, you should be spending more money on lunch, actually more than just $5. So it's that tension of, you know, how much, what's fair food mean? Slow food, fast food picnic brought Carlo here. It was huge, right? Lots of events introducing members to local growers. Disco soup was Slow Food Russian River. The Time for Lunch attracted lots of people to Slow Food Sacramento. We did the $5 challenge too, and brought new people to slow food. I believe there was a big movie at this time that we got the context from as well. It really boosted our outreach. I'm forgetting the name of the movie right now, but yeah, slow food was a darling in the media. We got a lot of media attention. This was the height of foodieism, and farmers markets were expanding as well during this period, right? Not surprising, it coincided with high membership. And someone else says, this is when I really dove in and became active, joined the board, became the chair, lots of work and so much energy in the organization. Amazing, thank you. And Donna says, I officially joined Slow Food Metro North in 2012, met Carlo at a national meeting in New York City. Yeah, I think Carlo did a couple tours of the United States during this time. I spoke to someone who said, you know, he did a book tour with the Slow Food Nation book and like packed out theaters, lots of attention. Max says there was a large focus on Arc of Taste and Presidia. Biodiversity was a large focus of Slow Food. Someone else, my first year with Slow Food East End, stumbled upon this chapter at a North Fork foodie event. My perception at the time was that this was a fabulous way to get to know your community and the people behind our food. Great. Lori Carlson says, several slow food leaders I know quit after the meeting in the South. Was sad. Don't know what happened there, but was significant. This was a meeting in New Orleans or Nashville, I believe. Yes, so growing tension in the national office, I think, was reflected in chapter leadership. Louisville, thank you. Louisville Congress was heated with competing agendas. Thank you for clarifying that. Josh was a good spokesperson, but had a great presence, but the split in the national org was evident at the conferences. Right, so quite a lot of internal division, unclarity on direction, mission, values. I think some split about what our focus was, specifically around food justice. Marla says our North Shore chapter did an incredibly popular film and food event championing our local farmers. Amazing. This is so great to hear everyone's perspectives here. I really appreciate it. So Josh left in 2012 and Richard joined as the director of Slow Food USA. And we're going to go to the next era here, which is 2012 to 2019. Again, maybe there's a better way to divide this. This is what I've landed on. So Richard directed Slow Food USA, still based in New York City from 2012 to 2019. From what I've heard, he really brought people together and healed a lot of divisions after that kind of contentious time in the network. And he went through a new strategic planning direction to really focus on 3 areas. There were events, there were campaigns, and there were partnerships. And our biggest event, of course, was Slow Food Nations, reviving that huge festival in Denver. So we hosted Slow Food Nations from 2017 through 2019. This is when I started in 2016, so I'm finally in the picture here as communications director. But there was an intentional shift away from focusing on chapters and network support. There was a really quite sharp decline in membership for many reasons, right? I think it's not just one reason, it's a complicated thing. A lot of membership organizations were also in decline over this time. Slow Food Nations ran for 3 years in Denver, and we really tried hard to find a sustainable business model for Slow Food Nations, and never really quite got there. I think we could have gotten there with a few more years, but at this point, Slow Food Nations is not happening. It's hard to bring a big festival back after taking a break. I became ED officially in 2019. So yeah, I would love to hear your perceptions of this era too. So we see Richard came to Arizona and met with our chapter. It was amazing. We attended Terra Madre and opened our eyes to the whole international organization. Stephanie is saying she joined Slow Food during this time. She quietly watched and listened. Alex from Slow Food New York City became a member of Slow Food in 2016 as a result of my previous work at Italy, which opened in New York City in 2010. Well, closely tied to the international organization, Italy brought more awareness to good, clean, and fair values in New York City through education around producers, right? So more and more businesses, I think, during this time are really embracing the slow food ethos and messaging. Hey, Laura, could I ask you to read some of these while I take a sip of water?
Sure. You want me?
Yeah, do you mind? Thanks, Laura.
No, not at all. I could read them, sure. All right.
Talking. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
No, that's totally fine. I have no problem. I hope I don't repeat anything. Let me see here. Stephanie from Slow Food Vegas joined Slow Food during this time, 2015, quietly watched and listened. Would love to see Slow Food Nations or something like it happen again. So someone's being hopeful. That's great. Max says, during this period, Slow Food USA decided to do a revenue share with chapters. It only lasted a year or so. Interesting that this effort came around again in 2021, wondering if this model will last or if it, let me see, I can't read the rest of it. If
you have to double click it, yeah.
Oh, okay, hold on one second. Or if it, there it is. Okay, wondering if this model will last or if it should, question mark. Slow Food Prescott self-identifies as a school garden chapter. Let's see, the network members contributed a total of $30,000 to Slow Food Nations for Food Justice programs. We adopted the EIJ manifesto, so that was charity. Beth Kunkel, I did the Adventure Canada Newfoundland cruise. That was great. I heard cruise, which was great.
Right, slow travel. Yep.
Yep. So slow travel. Paul Shakin, more and more people took on issues relating to food and biodiversity, and we lost our edge. Okay.
John, let me just read this one in the chat from John Forty. So it sounds like many regime changes were the focus, but it's important to remember that most of us just continue the work of growing slow food, biodiversity, farmers markets, school gardens, and community. Yeah, totally, John. I appreciate that. Yep.
Oh, what else? Shirley, Slow Food Vegas launched, whoop, there we go, Shirley. Slow Food Vegas launched our chapter with Patrick Martin as our keynote speaker. His speech was heartfelt, inspiring, and energizing. Chef Nicole, who had just opened Bressa, hosted the event, and it was,
a beautiful success.
Beautiful success.
That was hard to read as they go. Tiffany says a real period of push for regionalization, but accompanied by real questions of how chapter, regions, Slow Food USA, Slow Food International interacted, tension between decentralization and coordinated action.
Tiffany said a real period of push for regionalization, but accompanied by real questions of how chapters, regions, Slow Food USA, Slow Food International interacted, tension between decentralization and coordinated action. Richard came to Arizona and met with our chapter. Amazing. We attended Terra Madre and opened our eyes to the whole international organization. Who else? Donna again. Hi, Donna. I joined the board, became chair of Metro North, attended Slow Food Nations. We did have fun, and Terra Madre.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is really amazing to see this. Tiffany in the chat said lots of internal soul searching structures and activities. Yeah, so I think a lot of good momentum from events and also a lot of chapter activity. Amazing. Okay, so yep, focus on school gardens and EIJ, right, Charity? This is when the EIJ, you all pulled together the Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Working Group, wrote a manifesto, presented it at Terra Madre 2016, I want to say, and then again at Nations 17, and kept that. Did a lot of fundraising to bring diverse voices to Slow Food Nations in 18 and 19. Yeah, great. Yeah, Kim says School Garden Network began. Yes, so fish grows, so meat grows, a lot of different, like more thematic groups, I might say, starting to emerge from the network as people maybe want to connect beyond just their chapter and more thematically across the country. So slow fish, slow meat, school gardens, what am I forgetting? Arc of Taste, various Arc of Taste committees. Yeah, great. Okay, so let's go on to COVID. Yes. Okay, so the next frame here, 2020, of course, we know March 2020, everything shuts down. COVID-19 upends all events across the network, across the globe. Terra Madre goes virtual, Slow Food Nations gets canceled. A lot of chapters which had been doing, focused on events, stopped doing events. At the national level, Slow Food USA pivoted pretty quickly to, if we're not doing Slow Food Nations anymore, really focusing on, we started with a National Resilience Fund, moving to other ways to build partnerships and give chapter support. So I might say focus on resourcing the grassroots network, focus on educational programs like Slow Food Live, and Seed Summit. The Slow Fish Summit went online, so the Seed Summit went online. We started living our lives on Zoom, right? And also, I would say that equity, inclusion, and justice work stopped being a separate group and really became more embedded into all the policies and work that we're doing across the board. From what I hear and what I see, a lot of chapters, or many chapters, have struggled to retain strong and healthy boards during this time. It is hard work, people. This, you know, if you're working with a volunteer group, to maintain a high level of time and interest and engagement while there's no events and the rest of your life is crazy, it has been hard for many chapters. I mean, as a working mom of a 6-year-old, I completely empathize with all, like, if anyone's still able to pull off volunteer work during COVID, like, my biggest respect to you. And I just want to recognize that this has been a hard time for boards in particular. We ran the membership revenue pilot last year, and I have some stats to share with you in just a second. And I'm happy to say that our membership actually went up for the first time in many years. Actually saw a slight uptick. So I would love, again, for you all to jump in here and just say, like, the past few years, what's going on, and how, what are you seeing from your perspective, and how are you perceiving the health and well-being of slow food and what's happening? And like John Forte said earlier, maybe not just like what's happening in the organized structure of slow food, but in your food world, right? In local farmers markets. And yes, if you're having trouble with Jamboard, you can always drop it in the chat. Could I again get someone to help me read these stickies?
Do you want me to read them?
Sure, thank you, Laura.
I'll share the love, but I have no problem. I have no problem reading.
I appreciate it.
Sonoma County North membership went up during the last couple of years. That's great. Slow Food Prescott starts a COVID-safe project, grow food in your backyard, and brought in new members 2022, repeating this successful project. Let me see. Very hard to maintain board relationships and cohesiveness during this time. Yeah, it's been tough. Learned a lot from the 2020 Leader Summit about how other chapters work. Love Slow Food TV on YouTube. That's cool. Joined Vegas chapter late in 2021. Super new. Seems to be a larger emphasis on justice, equality, and advocacy. Had numerous events planned for our chapter. All had to be canceled. Had a serious case of COVID. Glad to be live. Thank God bless. Focused on Airbnb events to support Slow Food International coordinated numerous classes, outdoors, beekeeping, gardening, poultry classes. That's Donna. Glad you're here. Max Caruso, let's see, the Gravenstein Apple Presidia, a project of Slow Food Russian River, continued their great work. They partnered with local organizations to produce thousands of jars of applesauce, which were distributed via the local food bank. Wow, that's great. Lots of efforts to prop up local ag in the face of loss of tourism and loss of restaurant business. Use of federal monies to help farms directly supply the island's most needy populace here in Hawaii. Completely switched gears from classes, education experiences, to supporting local farms and producers through cross-promoting and listening to their needs. All of our chapter members moved away. Yeah, that was a big one during the pandemic, where a lot of people started to get scattered. Yeah. Let's see, Angie White from North Louisiana has a fairly consistent membership level. bringing in some new folks each year. Sometimes we really adopt national priorities. Sometimes we focus more on local priorities. Depends on fit and local bandwidth. That's so true. Need to assess where slow food can play a role that is most effective on the chapter level. When many chapters were founded, we were the only ones talking about this work, and now other local orgs are also focusing on these issues at the local level, like school gardens, which is incredible. And I can't read the, oh, there it is, which is incredible. And there are lots of opportunities for collaboration. Santa Fe, let's see, Santa Fe had more activities using Zoom to connect with people around the country through our food system webinar series and our radio show in 2021. Isn't that true? Like how that really opened up folks to be able to participate, where potentially if we come together like a Nations or Terra Madre, people couldn't come together. So that did really was able to bring people to the table. Helped a local distiller develop a slow food webinar. The webinars were fantastic. That sounds great. Recruited new board members, and struggled a lot with articulating what we were inviting them to. So that's something I'm sure we're going to touch upon on programming.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. There's a lot here.
Yeah,
this is really amazing. And we will share, you can go back and read these after tonight. There's a lot here. And I think things like, there's a lot of growth in this field in sustainable food, and figuring out how does slow food fit in. This is a question I want to tease out and think through with you all, but feel free to keep working on this board. I want to jump back to, okay, this is my little history slide. I want to jump to some stats real quick, because some of you think better in artistic sticky boards, and some maybe like me or think in numbers. So this is our membership by region for the past 5 years. And Brian's going to put in the chat a link if you really want to dig into numbers to see the in-depth numbers per region for revenue from membership. But you can see here from 2017 to 2020 is a pretty sharp decline. And at one point we were losing about 1,000 members annually. Maybe from 2017, 18, 19, I would say that's quite a sharp decline. And then you can see 2020, we kind of bottomed out here. I hope it's a bottoming out. And 2021, there's a slight uptick in membership across the region, across the country, which was really exciting to see that happening. And I'd love to understand in detail why that's happening and what you're all doing to really engage members in your area. But the membership pilot was very successful, and we're going to stop making that a pilot and make that just the policy moving forward, so that chapters will still need to opt in, but that opt-in period will happen during the annual report process, so that you say a little bit about what your plan is to work with membership. And then basically we set a goal per region based on the past 2 years average. And then until the region hits that goal, you get a 10% kickback. And after the region hits that goal, it's a 50% kickback. And you can see the specific goals in that spreadsheet, and also on the fundraising session I'm doing on Monday, we'll go into all those details. But that is the high level look at membership. Okay, how are we doing? What I'd like to do now is, let's see here. I think we actually, I'm going to skip through. Let's see, what time is it? Let me actually skip through this right now, because we kind of addressed what's working well and what the biggest challenges are right now, and I don't want to keep people past the hour. What I want to talk now about, like, okay, if this is the past and the present, where are we going in the future, and what's next for Slow Food USA? What's next for the chapters? And I wanted to introduce you to the staff. I think many of you know some of us, but maybe not all of us. We had the opportunity to come together for a staff retreat in November on a cold beach Rockaway time here in Queens. And I just wanted to introduce the staff here. We have from the back left, we have Brian, our Director of Communications, Erin, our Policy Coordinator, Michelle is in Chicago with Communications, Lauren is our Development Manager in Connecticut, Mara Welton is our Programs Director in Vermont, Dan Mueller is our EIJ Strategist. And then in the front, Kate and Alessandro are the co-chairs of the Slow Food USA Board of Directors. Felix is the Network Engagement Director, and me, Anna Mulè. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to my staff. I love my team. We work really well together and had a great time listening to each other and like what we're hearing from the network, what we're hearing from the world, and how we can move forward together. And I wanted to give a special big shout out to Felix, who is leaving staff at the end of this month. He's been such a big supporter of the network, of chapters, and he's been a fantastic thought partner and strategist too on staff. So we are talking with Dan to move into his role, Dan Mueller to move into the network engagement role. So thanks, Dan. I'm excited to deepen our work with you. And then we'll also be hiring a part-time, I think we're going to call it a network success manager to help with some of the admin. So keep an eye out on that probably next month for that job opening. So we came up with a pretty simple theme and strategy for 2022 based on what we heard in the network and, like I said, what's happening in the world today, and also aligning ourselves with Slow Food International. And the theme for 2022, it will be regenerate. This is the theme of Terra Madre, which is happening in September 18th, 20th, that weekend in Torino. It will be in person, fingers crossed, knock on wood, happening in person. And we will have three kind of thematic through lines that will be pulling in all of our programming and work this year. And those three are climate action, health, and food justice. And the way that we'll do that is we'll start with some very specific stories. So for example, the Plant a Seed campaign is now in its, I think, 6th or 7th year. In the past, it's been kind of crammed into the spring because then we turned our attention to Slow Food Nations and then we got buried by the fall. This year, we are going to extend the Plant a Seed campaign throughout the entire year. So starting on World Pulses Day on February 10th and going all the way through planting, eating, celebrating, harvesting, sharing seeds. And Mara will talk about this in just a minute. But we want to start with a specific story of beans in this case and use that very specific story from Ark of Tay's beans to talk about climate, to talk about health, and to talk about food justice. And I wanted to introduce this today to get your gears turning about how you as chapter leaders and community leaders might also pull these threads, these thematic threads through your work this year so that we can align our vision and our strategy around regeneration and climate, health, and food justice. Okay, this is a graphic that Slow Food International has been sharing specifically about the pillars of action. So you'll see this when Elisa and Eddie Muchibi talk with us next week. They'll be talking about international strategy and also about details of Terra Madre. So if you have questions about the delegate process and all that, save them for Elisa. She might not have answers, but you can chat with her about that. So the big vision here, right, is Slow Food envisions a world where all people can eat food that is good for them, good for the people who grow it, and good for the planet. And the three outputs here, the three ways that we do it is by defending biological and cultural diversity, educating, inspiring, and mobilizing citizens, and influencing policies in public and private sectors. And of course, all of those three action areas point towards our tagline that I hope you all know now is good, clean, and fair food for all as the center point for all of our activity. So with that in mind, in terms of the action plan, we have created what we're calling the seasons of Slow Food USA. And we're already here in the middle of Q1, season 1, with the Leader Summit. And you can see some of our activities at the national office throughout this year. One of the things you'll see here is working together on a joint theory of change conversation, right? So as our big picture strategy kind of got upended with COVID, and that we're now some different leadership, different ideas, different items from the network, we want to really hone in on our specific theory of change. And Dan Mueller will be leading that work specifically this year, having a lot of conversations with folks, creating a draft to present during Terra Madre, and then having the final rollout of that theory of change by the end of the year. So that's a really exciting process to look forward to. We have, as I said, the Plant a Seed campaign coming up, and you'll see the Plant a Seed in all 3, Q1, 2, and 3, those seasons. We just launched today a crowdfunding campaign to kickstart the FAIR curriculum. And big shout out to Neha, Kim, and Cynthia for leading this work. We have a school gardens curriculum for good, for clean, but not for fair. And they are on a mission to create a curriculum for fair. And so we are doing a crowdfunding campaign to be able to pay the contributors and to really create a dynamic and helpful tool for school garden educators. You'll also see in here some focused time to talk about slow books, to talk about Snail of Approval, to do the membership drive, of course, in September, and the Snail Blazer Awards in December, along with the online auction. This year, for the first time, we invited chapters to participate in that auction, and that was a really exciting way to help chapters fundraise at the end of the year. So we plan to do that again as well. Yes, and Dan, thanks for the shameless plug. We're hosting a Theory of Change workshop happening next Monday from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific. And the registration link wasn't working for that, but it is now, so please sign up. Mara? No, okay. Okay, so you know, from our perspective, there's a lot of things happening in the network, and we want to provide the support that will really help the network thrive and grow. And you probably feel this as well from the chapter and local perspective. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of things happening, and we cannot do it all. And in fact, if we try to do it all, we will be stretched too thin and not do anything well. So we've created a very simple rubric for when do we say yes to something. And I encourage you as chapter leaders also to think about, like, what is your decision-making process for deciding your activities. And for us this year, it has to have a clear connection to those themes, right? Health, climate, and solidarity, food justice. It has to have energy from people in the network, right? If one person comes to me with an idea but has no support, I can't do it, we can't do it, it's too much of a lift. We need like energy from the network so that we are supporting the network and not running a campaign all by ourselves. It needs to be financially viable. It needs to have a revenue stream, or it needs to support itself, or not need any money, as sometimes the case is. And we need to have the internal capacity, and it needs to fit on our seasons chart. I want to turn this over to Mara for a quick spin around the Plant a Seed campaign specifically, but just wanted to check if there's any quick questions before I do that. And you can either like raise your hand on chat or put a question in the chat. Okay, Mara, can I turn it over to you?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you tonight. I get so energized when we have our Leader Summit. It's in time to connect and regenerate all of our commitment to this great work that we're all doing. For Plant a Seed, I'm super excited to be on board as a programs director and bringing some of my long thought out ideas for the network as a former chapter leader and also a retired farmer. I have a lot of thoughts about how we do slow food. So I'm really excited to be bringing these to the network now and expanding things that we've had for a long time, like plant a seed. The retreat was really helpful to have us come around what Stephen Satterfield quote at the beginning of this session that Anna said. I would like to call back to that, but having a shared vision around something really galvanizes our work together. And so that's what we're trying to do with Plant a Seed being a full year-long campaign that hopefully will touch all of the facets and groups of our network and have us sort of be unified in our efforts to articulate this work that we try to do with good, clean, and fair food for all. So I'm just going to walk you through what this looks like. I'm going to be giving a full breakdown talk about all of the ways we might do this together. That talk is happening on Sunday. It's called 6 Beans, 1 Network. It'll be in the evening, I think at 7 o'clock. And then we'll have another talk the following Sunday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern about slow beans specifically, which is a new slow that was just created by Slow Food Italy. I was very inspired by them. And like I said, being a former farmer, I have a deep love for beans, and beans are uniquely poised to help us tell the story of climate, health, and food justice. So I just really quickly want to sort of orient you to this chart that I created. Underlying everything will be this theory of change that Dan's going to walk us through next week. But at the soil level there, that's the Slow Food USA network. That's all of you. That's our leaders. That's our chapters. That's Slow Food Turtle Island. That's the governors / counselors doing the work at the ground level and connecting with all of our membership. The theme this year is beans because there's so many beautiful beans in the Arc of Taste, and they're all in the various regions of the land that we are residing on. So it was a really good starting crop to use for this this matrix, this idea, because beans also are very adaptable and they grow well across all the zones. They're easy to save, and like I said, they're uniquely poised to talk about climate resilience, to talk about nutrition and nutrient density, and also about human migration stories and adaptability and food justice. So my little diagram sort of shows some of the major groups that we have with our working groups and our program groups within Slow Food USA and the work that they do, highlighted in the boxes above. And the individual 6 beans that are listed here are sort of representing the ideas, right? The ideas of the work that we do in the network. And then hopefully those ideas will reach down to those lower sub-levels of soil, of climate, health, and food justice. And those roots of our work will touch all of those areas and then grow out the future connections in the form of my little graphic of a bean plant at different stages. There's lots of ways that we can do this, and we'll talk about that during my talk. But hopefully this is getting the wheels turning a little bit about how beans might show up in your work, in your chapter. I'm really excited to share all of the beans that we're going to use. So Plant a Seed is a kit, and it's also this programming idea for the year. And the kit will feature the 6 beans. And we're also going to have a bean zine in there that will have a lot of information and resources about beans. And also we're going to be promoting a lot of seed saving this year and preservation and food sovereignty with the beans. So there will be some seed saving packets in the kit this year as well to help us do that. So like I said, I'm speaking on Sunday more in depth and in detail about this. So please join me then. And also on the following Sunday, we'll talk about slow beans in Italy and Europe and how that manifested, but also how we're going to try and have a slow beans here, here at home. So that, I think, wraps up without getting too much further in depth. I'll save all the rest for next time.
Thank you, Mara. It's been really amazing to have your farmer heart and soul on staff so you can deepen the Plant a Seed campaign this year. And you all need to get ready for a lot of bean puns, a lot of bean jokes. It's already happening. No, I'm really excited for this campaign and to have the time to go from start to finish. Okay, people, let's jump back into Jamboard for a final 2 slides so that we can hear some feedback about, first, what are you most excited about in 2022? Then we also want to hear from you, how will your group, this is chapter community, regenerate? How do you think you can connect to this theme? So again, let's go over to slide 8 in Jamboard. I'd love to hear some feedback from what I've just spoken about and what Mara has spoken about. What are you most excited about in 2022? And it doesn't have to be only, of course, national stuff. What are you excited about in your chapters, in your communities in 2022? We'd love to hear from you. Yes, we're on slide 8 in the Jamboard. So
Great, Snail approval.
okay, holding experiences again. Yeah, totally. Hopefully we will be back in person on some things. We have a young farmers meet and greet, seed exchange, and farm dinners. Amazing. Yeah, the seed exchange I think is a great way to connect to plant a seed as well. Welcoming new restaurants and food makers into the Snail Approval Network with a focus on EIJ. Excellent. Again, like I said before, we really want to see equity, inclusion, and justice baked in from top to bottom. And tomorrow we'll have the session on the National Statute, and we'll talk about how we're baking in decentralized power into that document, and doing that in a lot of ways. Beth loves the bean theme. Yay. Okay, Karen says meeting in person. You're excited about that. Attempting Zoom cooking classes for our members. Excellent. I know Slow Food East End has been doing a lot of that, as well as others. Beans offer great opportunities to coordinate with and amplify Slow Food Turtle Island Association. Yes, exactly, Charity. Half of our beans have really strong Native American connections, and we're excited to tell those stories. We also are working with, we got a grant from Organic Valley to do a project with Native American farmers that will be deepening this year, that Mara is leading and coordinating. Amy from Slow Food Vegas is growing our members, local network, and getting involved with the community. The slow beans, yes. Bean cook-off and getting more farmers growing Southern beans. Yes, there is a lot of regionality to beans, right? So it's interesting to have, we've been calling them bean feeds, but whatever bean activities. Yes, Max says, I'm most excited to see what my local chapter, Russian River, has planned for 2022. Plant a seed, Gravenstein apple Presidia, Terra Madre, local snail approval. Awesome. Angie says North Louisiana has had good success with their heirloom seed donations to farmers and community gardeners and connecting them with local chefs. This is the benefit of the Plant a Seed campaign, that there's a lot of ways for different communities to hook into the campaign, right? From cooks to Arc of Taste to school gardens. I'm excited to see how we can do that. We see a line around a shared vision, addressing local needs, farm dinner in August, connecting with local youth, connecting and collaborating with other chapters in our region as an urban chapter. Totally. Seed exchanges at the library and farmers market. Terra Madre. I see some excitement there. Rethreading existing initiatives throughout the slow food system. Excellent. I'm excited. I feel like a lot of folks have done a lot of internal work, either rebuilding boards or kind of restructuring in the past few years. And maybe 2022 is a time to start getting out again with some programming. Shirley says, most excited to grow our membership projects and keep the passion and commitment from our members at a high level. Yes, Neha, getting that FAIR curriculum started, doing it. It's amazing. It's been some time coming now. Terra Madre, deriving inspiration. Amazing. This is really great to see. Okay, and the last Jamboard here. If you could go to slide 9, I want us to think about this theme, regenerate. And Dan, I think this can hook into the theory of change work that we're doing, but how can you connect with this theme of regenerate in your work? And especially with climate, with health and food justice. How do you see those things show up in your board? And how do you think that you can connect with this theme? Or maybe you say that this doesn't resonate with me at all. Forget it. That's okay too. You can put that here, and I'd love to learn more about that. But what are some ways, like specific ways here? It'd be great to get like real specific. Maybe you want to bring on like one new board member this year, or you want to connect with a new partner who's focused on climate, for example, this year. I'd love to see some ideas here for regenerate. Okay, so we have add new board members, chefs, farmers, youth. Hannah in the chat says building relationships with new groups in our community. Totally, that's a real focus that we're seeing at National too, is, you know, as the food space has a lot of players in it, how can we not create something brand new that's just slow food, but partner with other organizations that are doing really great work? Thank you. Regenerate our board. Yeah, there's been some really great examples. I think of Slow Food Atlanta has rebuilt their board in the last year. Slow Food East Bay, Slow Food Dallas is doing a lot of board work right now. I'm sure many of you, it's a constant theme. The policy team, great. We're using webinars to bring in diverse voices and experiences and inspire members to participate in key policy initiatives, including the Farm Bill. Excellent, thanks, Charity. Lori says she's excited to start working with Mara on local Arc of Taste, have already lined up new Hawaii committee to help with this effort. Hope Arc can be used to support and promote local ag. And I see both Lori and Jeline on this call. I hope you we can get some good things happening in Hawaii this year. I'm also excited, we haven't made this super publicly known, but we actually sold a book about the Arc of Taste to a publisher. Like we're in the middle of signing the contract, but it's confirmed and will be published next year. So David Shields and Giselle Kennedy Lord are co-authoring that book. I'm excited to have that come out in the next year. It's an attempt to develop a longer-term vision that is less reactive and allow more time for strategic planning. Yes, I think sometimes there's a pressure to to produce, to hold an event, to go. And sometimes we need to let the land rest and to plan and to do some strategic visioning. Marla says partner with the Cornell Cooperative in our area. Excellent. Yes, Arc of Taste building up. We no longer have a national Arc of Taste committee, but we're strengthening those regional committees. We're excited for that. Slow Food East End is focusing on climate change and ag impacts. Also added more board members recently with different backgrounds and interest, talent, connecting with the community to help nourish those who are food insecure through the Flower Power program. Excited for Flower Power, that's like such a great name. Presenting Slow Food School Gardens at our first ever National School Garden Conference in Denver. Yes, Neha, that's amazing. You guys are gonna have a lot of fun. And then our theme for 2022 is climate. We are still working on our goals, hope to incorporate information learned during the Leader Summit. Excellent. Yeah, I think the climate, I mean, it's in the news every day, it's hard to ignore. And I think maybe people don't connect climate with food very much, but of course we know there's so many connections and important ways to think about that. Stephanie in Vegas says we have a new board member who is a master gardener, programming to include education on how to garden at home in the Mojave Desert to improve health and accessibility. Our Slow Wine board member is a sommelier who is focusing on sustainable, biodynamic, and organic wines. Yes, and of course the Slow Wine tour is happening like now, this week. They're coming through a couple regions, and Slow Wine has a US component now in the official book, and they will be working with wineries in Washington, Oregon, California, and New York, I believe. So that's an exciting new area. Okay. Paula says, do you have assistance for boards who need to rebuild and have so far not been successful? Paula, that is an excellent question, and I would love you to connect with Dan. Dan has been doing some like one-on-one consulting work, you might say, or just mentoring work with boards to help develop and diversify boards. So that's great. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, wonderful. Well, it is past the hour now, and I would love to keep talking with you all and have this dialogue, but I also want to respect your time, and my family is putting dinner on the table, so I think we will call it a night. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I really appreciate your input. I think it's so important to hear your perspective of the slow food history. I love seeing all that, and we will share the Jamboard and the presentation so that you can read through those sticky notes and add more too if you want to keep adding to those participatory boards. Okay, I think I had
Where is the schedule? Where is the schedule for signing up for workshops?
Brian, can you put a link in the chat?
Yep,
Yeah, I
it's
just wanted to.
actually-
What's that?
Yeah, Paula.
So just to do a quick plug, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing the National Statute conversation. That we are finalizing the draft by the end of January, then we'll be asking for a vote from all of you. So this is the time, if you have edits or suggestions, to get your voices heard. So please join us tomorrow at 2 Eastern, Saturday at 1 p.m. The School Gardens amazing trio will be leading a conversation. Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern is the Cooks Alliance. They have some really exciting plans in the works for this year. 5 p.m. is Slow Books, and 7 p.m. back with Mara, like she said, the 6 Beans One Community conversation. If you really want more details about the Plant a Seed, that is the time. So let me stop my screen share. Please, if you could jump into the survey link that Brian put in the chat, it's really helpful to get your quick feedback on these sessions so we can do better next time. Charity, you have a question?
Yes, I don't think it's clear where people find the new version of the National Statute in the Leader Summit materials. And so if you could provide that link as well.
Yes.
So people are ready for the presentation tomorrow.
Yes, that sounds good. We can definitely do that. We tried to make this document less formal so you can actually read it and get through it and understand it. So it's still a little long, but it's an important document for all of us. Let me just throw the chat in right here. That's the National Statute revisions. Yes, and again, please just take 2 minutes to answer that survey. That's really important. If you all want to just unmute and say good slow food goodbye, we will see you tomorrow. And thank you again for joining the session.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thursday.
Thanks, Anna and team. Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks,
Bye,
y'all.
Mara.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Good night.